Bonjour à tous, bonjour à toutes. Comment allez-vous? Bien? Écoutez, on va passer 1h30 ensemble. 1h30, on va marcher à travers les forêts. On va essayer de comprendre un lien intime qui existe dans la forêt et dont on parle assez peu, qui est le lien entre ces arbres et l'eau, le système hydrologique. Quand on parle de forêt, on va parler souvent de climat, de biodiversité, souvent aussi de communauté, mais assez peu d'eau. Et en fait, l'eau est essentielle à la vie, l'eau est essentielle à la forêt, et sans forêt, il n'y a peut-être plus d'eau. Donc ça va être de ça dont on va parler aujourd'hui tous ensemble. Je suis Amandine Hersan, je suis absolument pas journaliste, vous allez sûrement vous en rendre compte. Mon métier, c'est d'être actrice de terrain. Je travaille pour Planète Urgence, une ONG qui va sur les terrains d'intervention, là où il y a le plus d'urgence. Alors je pense qu'on a 25 ans, on n'a jamais aussi bien porté notre nom qu'aujourd'hui, malheureusement. 25 ans d'action, on essaie de réconcilier l'humain et la forêt, 25 ans où on va sur des territoires avec une déforestation importante, des vulnérabilités humaines, mais aussi une perte de biodiversité sur ces espaces où il reste encore des choses à préserver. Donc nous sommes chez Planète Urgence une centaine de salariés, on opère dans 7 pays, on va travailler autant en Amazonie que dans le bassin du Congo ou en Asie du Sud-Est. Et à chaque fois, on va essayer de comprendre ce qui se joue entre l'humain, la communauté, la population et cette forêt. Qu'est-ce qui reste? Qu'est-ce qui est encore à sauvegarder? Sur quoi on peut agir? Comment? Quelles sont les connaissances ancestrales? Donc on va travailler sur l'éducation à l'environnement, on va travailler sur la restauration, la conservation des écosystèmes. On va travailler aussi sur les activités économiques génératrices de revenus pour ces populations pour qu'elles vivent avec la forêt et pas contre la forêt. C'est ça mon métier. Et en fait, plus on avance, plus on rencontre plein de difficultés. La première, ça va être des difficultés économiques. Je pense que vous n'êtes pas sans savoir qu'aujourd'hui, on a quelques tarissements de financement qui arrivent. La deuxième, ça va être des difficultés de l'ordre de changement climatique. On a dans nos zones d'intervention des cyclones qui vont détruire les zones de mangroves qu'on a pu planter. On va avoir aussi des problématiques politiques, sécuritaires. Là, j'ai des djihadistes en ce moment dans le nord du Bénin qui commencent à arriver sur les zones de forêt. Voilà, c'est ça notre quotidien. Et il y a un sujet qui commence à émerger. Il y a des communautés qui commencent à nous dire, là, ça commence à changer en termes de rythme, de pluviométrie. Là, j'ai trop d'eau, par contre, qui arrive. La saison est décalée. Il pleut plus à côté de chez moi. Qu'est-ce qui se passe? Et là, je vous avoue que moi, aujourd'hui, je suis très sèche, c'est le cas de le dire, sur cette thématique-là. Et du coup, je suis très heureuse d'être avec vous pour qu'on puisse parler de ce sujet avec des invités assez exceptionnels que vous allez découvrir juste à l'instant. Mais peut-être, avant qu'on démarre, j'aimerais bien savoir si vous, ce sujet-là, vous le maîtrisez ou pas. Est-ce que vous êtes d'accord pour faire un vote à fesses levées? C'est-à-dire, je me lève quand je suis concernée. Ça marche? Alors, pour les personnes qui sont a priori très peu concernées par le sujet, qui ont peu lu, qui sont assez novices, est-ce que vous pouvez vous lever et qui ont tout à apprendre ici? Ok, merci beaucoup. Les personnes qui se disent, moi j'ai lu pas mal, je comprends à peu près les basiques, mais j'ai envie d'en savoir plus. Ok, superbe. Et les personnes qui, par contre, se sentent vraiment expertes, qui auraient presque pu être sur scène. Bon, très bien. On en a quelques-uns quand même. Eh bien, bienvenue à toutes et à tous. On va essayer déjà de partir sur une base commune. On a une très belle vidéo à vous présenter pour que vous puissiez comprendre de quoi nous allons parler ensemble.
Les arbres posséderaient un pouvoir prodigieux, celui de faire tomber la pluie. Depuis quelques années, des scientifiques travaillent sur un phénomène hydrologique peu connu, la pompe biotique. Ce mécanisme participerait à créer au-dessus des forêts de puissants courants d'air humides, appelés aussi rivières volantes. Au pied des arbres, l'humus filtre l'eau qui tombe sur le sol. Cette eau, absorbée par les racines, va être pompée par le tronc pour nourrir l'arbre, puis transpirée par les feuilles sous forme de vapeur d'eau. C'est l'évapotranspiration. Un arbre adulte peut libérer jusqu'à 1000 litres d'eau par jour, qui circulent au-dessus de la forêt. Ces puissants flux de vapeur d'eau en passant à l'état liquide et en se condensant en nuages, créent une zone de basse pression qui attire l'air humide des océans vers la forêt. Ces courants d'air géants parcourent des milliers de kilomètres, apportant de l'humidité à toutes les formes de vie. En Amazonie, environ 400 milliards d'arbres génèrent 20 milliards de tonnes d'eau par jour, soit 3 de plus que le débit quotidien déversé par le fleuve Amazone dans l'océan. À travers les rivières volantes, les forêts jouent un rôle déterminant dans le cycle de l'eau. Sans forêt, pas de pluie. Et sans pluie, plus rien ne vit. Les forêts sont donc des alliés puissantes pour protéger le vivant et réduire les effets du changement climatique. Il est vital et urgent de sauver les plus anciennes, de restaurer celles qui sont dégradées, pour alimenter les rivières volantes de demain.
Et donc, c'est un grand honneur pour moi de faire venir sur scène 4 personnalités qui vont pouvoir nous aider à mieux comprendre ce sujet. J'invite Anastasia Makarieva, Antonio Donato Nobre, Peter Wollenben et Laurent Boileau à nous rejoindre. Alors Anastasia, tu es une physicienne et une écologue russe connue pour tes travaux pionniers sur la théorie de la pompe biotique. Retenez bien ce nom, nous allons en reparler. La pompe biotique qui nous amène à travailler sur les mécanismes par lesquels les forêts influencent les cycles hydrologiques et climatiques, notamment sur les forêts tropicales. Tu as beaucoup travaillé en Amazonie, mais aussi dans les forêts boréales et spécifiquement en Sibérie. Tu viens de Russie exprès pour nous voir. Merci beaucoup. Nous avions Antonio Donato Nobre, qui est climatologue et qui est un chercheur brésilien. Bienvenue, Antonio. Tu es reconnu pour tes travaux sur l'Amazonie et les fonctions essentielles dans la régulation du climat mondial. Tu es affilié à l'Institut national de recherche spatiale au Brésil. Et vous allez le voir, Antonio n'est pas simplement un scientifique, c'est aussi un militant. Et il arrive vraiment à mettre la science au service de ses convictions, qui sont très fortes et très profondes. Nous avons aussi Peter Wollenben. Bienvenue Peter. Alors Peter, je ne sais pas s'il faut le présenter, forestier allemand de formation, mais aussi auteur. Vous avez sûrement lu ses livres qui ont été traduits, je pense, dans des centaines de pays. Des livres qui sont sur l'intelligence des forêts. Vous avez sûrement lu La vie secrète des arbres, qui vous croisez dans une librairie tout au moins. Peter, tu as travaillé pendant 20 ans dans l'administration forestière allemande et depuis, tu vis à Eiffel, où tu mets en pratique tout ce que tu as appris pendant tes recherches et tes expérimentations. Bienvenue à toi. Et Laurent, ravi aussi de t'accueillir sur ces tables. Tu es dirigeant français reconnu dans l'industrie du luxe, notamment dans les secteurs du parfum et des spiritueux. Tu as été PDG de Guerlain, où tu as transformé la marque en alliant l'innovation et l'excellence, ainsi que l'engagement environnemental. Depuis 2019, tu es CEO de la maison de cognac NC, également et président aussi de cette maison, également une marque du groupe LVMH, et tu présides le comité Colbert. Et on va le voir aussi avec toi, l'activisme entrepreneurial est quelque chose qui te tient fortement à cœur, et tu as beaucoup travaillé sur la transformation des pratiques viticoles dans la région de Cognac. Bienvenue à tous les 4, je vous propose de les accueillir chaleureusement. Alors, vous avez vu que nous avons des intervenants qui viennent du Brésil, qui viennent de Russie, qui viennent d'Allemagne. Et donc, du coup, nous allons parler en anglais sur cette deuxième partie. Donc, vous avez des casques pour ceux qui en ont besoin. Vous avez sur le canal 1 l'anglais et le canal 3 le français pour ceux qui le souhaitent. N'hésitez pas à vous connecter, ça sera aussi le cas pour nos intervenants. Alors, commençons. Et le commencement, c'est peut-être de comprendre. Comprendre ce rôle de l'eau et de la forêt, comprendre ce qui se joue en termes d'interaction. Peut-être, Peter, si on part tout d'abord de l'intérieur d'une forêt, qui fonctionne comme un super-organisme, qu'est-ce qui se joue dans cette forêt?
To be honest, To be honest, we don't know very much about forest because in the last centuries, no, that's not true. In the last decades, centuries ago, it was regarded better. In the last decades, most people just saw trees. And trees is a small group of species in a forest. It's important, of course, but there are bacteria, fungi, insects. Just to say, I don't know if you would guess how many undetected, unresearched insects are alone in this region here. What would you estimate? It's just, you can just guess. There are thousands and thousands that we don't know. For example, do you know gall midges that are like little mosquitoes? Very special sort of insects. Just from this group, scientists estimate to detect more than 2,000 species. So, and we don't know. Biodiversity means they interact, and when they interact, something different happens, and we can only research things we know. Just as a prelude, we don't know very much about forest species. Anyone who tells you about managing biodiversity into more biodiversity has first to know what is the starting point. And we haven't detected this so far. What we know is what forests do as a whole ecosystem, not just trees. They create their own climate, for example. Evolution is often misunderstood as species has to adapt to new conditions. That's one way. The other way is you can adapt your environment. That's what we try in the moment, which with not very good success. Trees manage the environment, they manage their local climate. For example, they can cool by sweating. That's more your topic, what's going out of this sweat afterwards, Anastasia and Antonio. But when you sweat, you cool yourself down, lower the temperature, and that's exactly what forests do, what the mayor of Paris tries to do with the city, and I think she is very successful in this. Cool the local climate, and that's in the last 15 years around about 10 to 20 degrees, depending on what you compare it to, a city or to grassland or farmland. In average, 10 to 20 degrees noon temperature, surface temperature, not in the shadow, surface temperature in summertime. So trees are not doing this for us, they're doing this for themselves, for the forest, because then they can grow better and they can better keep the moisture. That's your part afterwards to tell us more about how this works. But they manage the environment and they make it in the usage from year to year better. They are not alone, the trees. For example, you see it in climate change. The whole system is working on adaptation. I don't know if you heard about foresters saying, we need new tree species to deal better with climate change. You know, the local trees can do this. And they are learning very fast due to epigenetical effects. And they train their youngsters with better knowledge. So they are dealing with this. And for example, even bacteria are a very big part of this adaptation. For example, trees have genetic experience which they can't remember, as you and me also have. And there are little bacteria which depend on sugar delivery from the trees, and when they realize, my tree is weak because of a drought, for example, then they trigger genetical memories. And then the tree, without being managed by the bacteria any further, can deal better with a drought. So we see the whole ecosystem is reacting, and that gives a lot of hope. So again, it's the whole forest is like a clockwork, and we only need the pointers. We only knew the pointers, which is enough to know the time, to know the big things around. But in detail, we don't know the wheels. So it's not very intelligent to put here a new wheel in and take one out and think it's working better afterwards. We haven't understood forest in detail. In general, in global things, I think we are on a very good way, but in detail, we don't know how it works. But all species are working in very high speed, just that you get a little glimpse of what is estimated not to be detected. Roundabout, it depends whom you ask, 90% here in France and Germany, 90% minimum of all species are not detected so far. Of course, they are very, very small. For example, bacteria. And we know without bacteria, we would die within minutes. Yeah, because we are also, we contain more bacteria than own cells. So that's exactly what's about forest. We don't know the biodiversity, we don't know most of the species. What we know is this is a self-regulating system. And the last point, if you look out of the window in the forest now, the broadleaf trees are without leaves. That's because they collect water in wintertime. Let the water through into the ground. And latest research, I think we have at last 3 studies so far, which says that our broadleaf tree, native tree species need 80% winter rain in summertime. So most people look at dry summers. The summer's dry, the forests are suffering. No, you have to look at the winter time. The winter time is wet, and it was a wet winter in Germany. I don't know how it was in Paris. But then the storage is full of water, and that brings the forest through the summertime. As long as no human thinks you can do it better.
I can tell you that wintertime is also very wet in France, specifically this year. Thank you, Peter. And perhaps to go more in detail, you were saying that you were explaining the impact on vegetal, but what about the animals? I've heard about le pinson with a bird who is singing differently with water.
A nice citation that I read. We have a special bird. You have it here, the most common bird in German forest, and perhaps also in perhaps northern French forest. He has different calls for sunny weather or rainy weather. And because some says, no, it has nothing to do with this, but we have it in the garden, in our old forester house garden. And I heard it yesterday in the morning, and it was exactly according to the weather. So this bird is calling for rain, and we should, that's a citation, be like this bird. Do you know the German name, Buchfink? Who's good in German? It's Buchfink. He has, beside this, different languages. I think here in France he will call a little bit different. But this is a bird of hope. And we should all call for more rain, be a little more like this bird in the forest.
Alors soyons des pinsons peut-être et écoutons le son de l'eau, et le son de l'eau peut-être à un autre niveau. So, Antonio, I'm going to do it in English. You have been working not only inside the forest, but also on the impact of the flying rivers outside at a global level. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes, it would be a pleasure. It's really an honor to be here. Thank you for bringing us. Yesterday we went to see the new restored Notre Dame, and as I was there thinking about a cathedral, I recalled the Amazon. The Amazon is the largest cathedral of life on the planet. Not only, but is the largest, most impactful. But before I get into the story of the Amazon, I would like to bring here some considerations about very intriguing facts. When you have a balloon, and in France, in Paris, talking about balloon reminds me of Saint-Dumont, Brazilian engineer and inventor who first flew the 14 bis airplane in 1906. That you have a balloon, if you put hot air inside, it will float. This is common sense. Hot air is lighter, it rises. But if you go, and now I'm talking about an elephant in the room of meteorology. If you go in any desert, you know the deserts have the hottest surface of any part of the world. And it doesn't happen there. The air over the desert doesn't go up, even though it's hot. It comes down. Why is that? This is very relevant to what Anastasia is going to say after. Well, it turns out, if you look at an animation done by NASA, very, very impactful one, around Australia, you see the clouds forming, and very intensive cloud formation over the oceans, you know, Indian Ocean, Pacific, and the Antarctic, and it's dancing around the continent and never comes on land. Why is that? You know, if you had rising air over Australia because it's a desert, then it would pull the moist air from the ocean inland. It doesn't happen. Why is that? This is a very relevant question. That's why I call it elephant in the room. Because how could we have ignored this? Now we know, because of the biotic pump theory, that what happens around Australia is that those condensation lowers pressure. And then lower pressure pulls air from the continent outside. So the wind on a desert always blows from land to sea, preventing wet moisture to come inland. Okay, that's an explanation for the desert. And that's also an explanation why the air over the desert comes down, doesn't rise up like in a balloon. Now, what's the implication of this knowledge? It's incredible implications. First of all, you know, Earth has 4.57 billion years. 90% of this time, the continents were barren, pure deserts, because of this phenomenon. You know, the air was drawn from the continent, and there was no mechanism to bring moisture inland. 90% of the time. So the usual mode of continents on Earth is to be a desert. That's the vocation of a continent. Except that nature had other plans and invented these incredible beings called plants. And plants subvert this logic. Plants bring, starting from the shores and moving inland, every continent, it happened, since 500 million years ago, they start subverting the hydrology, as Peter was mentioning. They start producing this phenomenon called evapotranspiration. And this goes against what is happening in the desert. So this is what changes the fate of continents. And plants conquered all the continents on Earth. You can see, even in Antarctica, you find fossils of dinosaurs, etc., because there was once flush vegetation there. Australia, Sahara, Saudi Arabia, vegetation everywhere. So we can attribute this hydrological cycle on land exclusively to plants. This is something that we don't have in our awareness, that every water you drink on land flows in the river, comes from the sky, are result of the activity of these incredible beings called plants. Now, what are we doing? We invented this machine, it's called chainsaw. Well, before it was axes, and then, of course, fire. And we start reverting something that Earth took 4 billion years to create. Because we start removing vegetation from the continents. What we get? Deserts. And especially if you think that, for example, Saudi Arabia, in the Christian scriptures, Saudi Arabia was the Garden of Eden. The pharaohs in Egypt used to cross the Red Sea to log big trees in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia today is a barren desert. The rainfall there is 60 millimeters per year. The rainfall in the Amazon is 2,600 millimeters. That's the difference between having plants and not having plants. So what are we doing? We are basically destroying the work of the biosphere, of Gaia, that took 500 million years to conquer the continents, and we are sending the continents back to their geophysical equilibrium, which is to become a desert. And I am sad to tell you that from the front lines of the Amazon, we are documenting the process of reverting this magic that nature produced, of making South America this incredible breadbasket and wet paradise. Because we are removing the vegetation, and we are seeing the desert returning to South America. There are areas in the Amazon where you see sand dunes under the forest. So sand dunes from the time South America was a desert, as any other continent.
So could the South America become a desert back at one point? What is the turning point?
It's already happening. It's already happening. For the eastern part of the Amazon, it's already going over the tipping point. And so it's very sad on one hand. On the other hand, there is a magic that maybe we can talk later in another part, that nature has invented this technology called seeds. And this is another elephant in the room. We eat our cereal in the morning, in the breakfast, without realizing we're eating brains. Each seed is a small brain. It has intelligence in it. You know, millions of years of evolution built inside each seed. And nature can rebuild itself. This is magical, right?
We're going to speak about magic right after.
Yeah, okay.
And you worked a lot together, Anastasia and Antonio, on this topic. And specifically, I think it's interesting to go more deeper into the biotic pump. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes. I work in theoretical physics division, so I'm a physicist, but studying life, and also providing first a bigger perspective. How can we define life? How it is different from what is non-living? For example, this table, it looks like made of wood, but it is not a living tree. And so if we compare living systems with non-living systems, we can see many things in common. For example, tornadoes and hurricanes also consume energy and then dissipate, and you can say that they are no longer fed and they die, like we can die of hunger. And there are, for example, chemical chain reaction that reproduce the products of the reaction. So you can say this is reproduction, which also life has. But we see that this is not life. And if we think what differs life from this, it's immense complexity. Life is so complex that unlike any inanimate object, it will never arise spontaneously. So if we kill the tree, make the table, and the tree doesn't leave seeds, there won't be a tree. So life arises from life. It doesn't arise spontaneously. So why? Because it is so complex. It is such a rare fluctuation, collection of molecules, and that it can't arise anew. And we ask ourselves, what is this complexity for? Is it just, complex, just random? No, this complexity is there because life is also eternal. In terms of so it self-perpetuates for billions of years. So it has the information inside, we know it is written in the genomes of species, that allows it to create conditions that facilitate its own perpetuation. So imagine that it is so complex just because this complexity is absolutely required to maintain the conditions for the maintenance and perpetuation of this complexity. And when we destroy this natural mechanism, or if you like, this is like distributed system working on this genetic algorithm of eternity. Genetics of eternity, this information is written in life. And when we interfere and we can break it, the first thing that deteriorates is the environment and all the components of the environment that life has been keeping for itself and for us as parts of it. So, and in this bigger picture, the biotic pump is a particular mechanism, physical mechanism, which life uses, terrestrial life, because oceanic life, which is the main life, the first life, it doesn't care because there is enough water in the ocean. But for terrestrial life on land, this mechanism is very important. And the physics of it consists in the fact that in our very remarkable atmosphere, we have a gas which is condensable, water vapor. And it means that when air rises and cools, these water vapor molecules come together and form droplets, and these droplets precipitate, and as there is less gas around, this creates pressure gradients. And what is a pressure gradient? When pressure somewhere is smaller, lower than elsewhere, and the air begins to move. So this is pure physics, but this condensation, the fact that we have water vapor that is condensable, allows life to make use of it and to guard, to regulate these pressure gradients in such a manner that moist air comes from the ocean over land and brings moisture that then drains back to the ocean. Because terrestrial life has this problem that fresh water leaks all the time due to gravity. This can't be helped. Gravity steals water from plants on land. So they needed to somehow bring it back. And imagine these first plants, like Antonio referred to, emerging for the first time in the Earth's history to this barren continent, and they inventing transpiration, and they literally were bringing humidity as they were conquering land, and they brought humidity together with them. The physical fact is that a moist atmosphere has different properties than a dry atmosphere because of condensation that creates conditions for air motions. And plants, and trees in particular, that keep the atmosphere moist, they govern these dynamics. And that's how this works, the biotic pump.
Alors, si je vous refais lever pour savoir si vous êtes sachant ou pas, est-ce que ça change la donne par rapport à tout à l'heure? Moi, oui. J'ai l'impression que je ne sais rien. Merci beaucoup de nous avoir éclairés sur tous ces aspects parce que ça nous montre à quel point la complexité du monde est grande. Ça nous montre à quel point tout est connecté, interconnecté. Et du coup, quand il y a un déséquilibre qui se met en place, l'eau, la forêt, si quelque chose ne fonctionne plus entre l'un et l'autre, on a des impacts qui sont significatifs. Et donc peut-être que cette deuxième partie, on va regarder justement quels sont ces déséquilibres, de quoi on se parle quand on dit que le cycle de l'eau évolue, d'où ça vient, qui est à l'origine de ça. Donc on va regarder peut-être un peu plus ça. Si vous avez en tête les pressions qui sont identifiées par l'IPBES, IPBES c'est le GIEC de la biodiversité, ils ont identifié 5 pressions fortes qui vont se mettre en place et qui vont changer la donne sur la biodiversité. La première, ça va être le changement d'utilisation du sol, donc je vais passer d'une forêt à de l'agriculture. La deuxième, ça va être la surexploitation, à quel point on va surexploiter les ressources, la nature pour pouvoir manger. Hein, ça va être le cas ou pouvoir couper du bois pour créer des maisons, etc. La troisième, ça va être le changement climatique. On aura aussi les pollutions et puis les espèces envahissantes. Donc ça, c'est ce que les scientifiques nous disent. Il y a 5 pressions fortes qui sont identifiées. À tous les 4, je vais vous poser la question de mais quels sont les déséquilibres qui, pour vous, sont les plus à l'œuvre? Peut-être, Antonio, pour démarrer, quand on a préparé cette table ronde, tu disais, pour moi, le plus grand déséquilibre, c'est peut-être pas ces 5-là, c'est le narratif, c'est le récit, c'est la capacité à raconter. Est-ce que tu peux nous en dire plus?
Just getting the translation. If it's not the capacity of is the capacity of telling stories. That's what the question.
Yeah, what's the biggest disequilibrium that emerge regarding forest and water? Where do you see that the pressure is the biggest? And perhaps related also to your knowledge in Amazonia. You're coming from Brazil, so what's happening right now in Amazonia that makes this equilibrium, which is this balance, it is really important. What is creating this disbalance?
I would have to go into social science,
let's go to the social
especially
science. Are we okay?
Psychiatry, because it's madness. What's happening, basically, and it's self-defeating. Self-defeating in the sense that whatever people are doing is destroying their own standard of living and destroying the environment, the comfort. You know, Brazilians, I can tell about the Brazil, we used to have this perception that we are gifted by nature, that we live in a wonderful country. We have these incredible resources, and it's very mild, tropical, fantastic. We have carnival and so on. And so we could not even think or imagine that we could destroy it. In our national anthem in Brazil, we say, the Brazil is a country eternally laying down on a splendid cradle. You know cradle for baby? So people are completely sleepwalking, ignorant. They don't know what's being done in their names. And most people, when you do the polls, they are against destruction. But there is a tiny fraction of society who has the means, who has the power, and who have really evil motives, I would say, who keep pushing the destruction, you know. And so I wouldn't, and I think it's true for other places, not only Brazil, you know. Ignorance feeds back into action that create destruction, that feeds more ignorance. And with fake news now, there's a new player in this story, it became really hard to get to the bottom of it, to bring awareness. We're discussing in the lunch. We need to get children to understand. The world belongs to children. They are the future. If they don't understand what's going on, they won't have a world to live in. So this is what most time we forget. We don't do this. Especially in science, we have a hard time speaking to children in simple ways, in simple terms, and we should do it.
Clearly, thank you for this word, Antonio. And perhaps it's good to reset the rules. Deforestation in Amazonia is related to agriculture, right?
Directly linked to agriculture, and especially cattle ranching is the worst, but not only. Now soybeans, you know, pigs and cows in Europe, in China, they eat soybean. And there is a new variety of investment. It's called climate hedging. It's a hedge done. They are moving agriculture from the areas impacted by climate change in the southern central part of Brazil into the Amazon. They're taking out forests to plant soybean because in the Amazon, you still have forests nearby. So there is still some regulation in the water cycle. Not too much drought, not too much floods. And they're moving the agriculture there, they're buying farms, hedge funds. And totally, completely misguided. This is destructive and disastrous in many ways. But they are seeing the short term. I'm making a buck tomorrow, and unfortunately. So.
Yeah, and there is probably something to be done as consumer also on when in Europe we are buying some meat. But we will talk about meat later on.
Are you willing to stop eating meat? This is one thing. Or maybe certification is another thing that people have been discussing. We have this enforce FSC things, but there is scams as well. So we have to get to the bottom of all of those things and really talk truth to power.
Et peut-être, Laurent, ça serait intéressant d'avoir ton regard à toi, puisque tu vas avoir un regard d'entrepreneur. Tu as fait des choix qui sont des choix courageux, qui ne sont pas ceux de tout le monde. J'imagine que tu as vu des déséquilibres et c'est ça qui t'a amené à agir. Qu'est-ce qui a fait ton engagement sur ces thématiques-là? Où est-ce que tu as vu ces déséquilibres, toi?
Écoute, Amandine, d'abord, je voudrais dire à quel point je suis heureux d'être à côté des personnes que j'ai un peu cherchées et choisies. Et on pourrait se demander, mais qu'est-ce que je fais ici? Parce que je ne connais pas grand-chose, et il y a ici des spécialistes. Alors, je voudrais quand même raconter un peu juste mon histoire personnelle, parce que ensuite l'action vient de cette histoire. La première fois que j'ai rencontré la forêt, et la forêt primaire, c'est il y a presque 20 ans, lorsque j'ai été parti pour une maison qui s'appelle Guerlain, chercher une orchidée qui m'a amené dans le Yunnan. Et j'ai, pour la première fois, été exposé à la beauté de la forêt primaire. Et puis j'ai compris aussi comment elle fonctionnait grâce à un couple absolument extraordinaire, Joseph et Mimo Margraff. Ce n'est pas le lieu d'en parler, mais c'est vraiment eux qui m'ont inspiré. Et puis, ayant un peu compris, ayant eu l'effet vert, le green effect, il y a ceux qui reviennent de l'espace qui ont le blue effect, et moi je me suis chopé le green effect. Et après m'être chopé le green effect, j'ai attrapé le Peter Wohlleben effect. Parce que je suis tombé sur le livre absolument merveilleux qui est La vie secrète des arbres, mon cher Peter, et puis j'avais commencé à comprendre par ce qu'on appelle, d'abord, en plus je l'ai réutilisé, je vais revenir sur la maison Annecy, le côté living landscape. J'avais compris en fait les paysages forestiers, comment ça fonctionne. Mais je n'avais pas encore pensé qu'il se passait tant de choses sous ces paysages. Et ce livre m'a vraiment beaucoup ému, j'ai beaucoup appris. Et puis j'ai continué à lire Peter, et dans un autre livre de Peter, et je me souviens très bien en fait, une page en haut à droite, 2 mots sont apparus, Flying Rivers. 2 mots, super poétiques. Et ces 2 mots m'ont conduit ensuite à me pencher sur l'ordinateur, faire beaucoup de recherches, trouver d'abord un film assez extraordinaire sur les Flying Rivers, de trouver les coordonnées aussi d'Antonio, mais également aussi d'Anastasia, il y a aussi André qui est là. Et puis après, on s'est mis avec quelques amis, à chercher Antonio. Et j'ai cherché Antonio et on a fini par le contacter dans un Zoom improbable de nuit. Et on voyait Antonio qui était, mais qu'est-ce que vous me voulez en fait? Qu'est-ce que vous me voulez? Et en fait, on voulait comprendre. Et Antonio est venu aussi avec Anastasia, est venu aussi avec Francis Allais, pour ceux qui aiment les forêts, c'est quand même un des grands dieux des forêts primaires. Et la maison que je représente, elle a simplement organisé une sorte de symposium autour de ce sujet-là. Alors, je ne vais pas être trop long, pour vous dire que ça, ensuite ça m'a emmené, et c'était les forêts, c'était avant que je ne change d'activité, que je passe du parfum au cognac. Et en arrivant dans le pays cognacais, je suis venu avec comment dirais-je, une intuition et une mission. L'intuition, elle répondait à 2 observations en arrivant dans le paysage cognaçais. La première qui est une observation partagée avec quelqu'un qui compte aussi beaucoup pour moi, qui s'appelle Stéphane Allaire, qui dirige Reforestation, qui nous a beaucoup accompagné. Et Stéphane, qui m'avait accompagné de Paris jusqu'à Angoulême et de Angoulême jusqu'à Cognac, m'avait dit « c'est pas mal chez toi, c'est un désert de vignes. » Un désert de vignes. Et la deuxième chose, c'est que certes, la maison a beaucoup progressé, mais il y a encore beaucoup d'intrants. Donc, qu'est-ce qu'on pouvait faire? Donc, l'intuition, c'est de se dire l'agroécologie est peut-être une solution. Et depuis, en fait, cette époque-là, on travaille. Et ce n'est plus de l'intuition, c'est du travail sérieux, parmi lesquels un grand programme qui s'appelle le Living Landscape, le paysage vivant, qui s'ajoute aussi à un programme qui s'appelle les sols vivants. Et on veut changer le paysage cognaçais. Ça paraît un petit peu utopique, mais changer le paysage cognaçais. Comment? Refaire venir les arbres, refaire venir les haies, des corridors de biodiversité, et de penser aussi que ce qui se passe aussi au-dessus va aider aussi ce qui se passe en dessous, et qu'il y aura peut-être finalement une automédication de nos sujets de vignes pour pouvoir les développer. Voilà. Ça, c'est une première partie, et l'autre sujet, c'est la mission, et quand on a la chance de diriger une si grande maison, c'est de continuer en fait à aider en fait les autres, la plus grande part. Donc on a un grand programme qui s'appelle aussi un programme de régénération de forêts, 50 000 hectares, c'est faire notre part. C'est pas replanter, c'est régénérer les forêts. Voilà. Donc, à Cognac et puis dans le monde.
Waouh! Est-ce qu'on peut faire un vœu collectif que l'ensemble des dirigeants du monde ait un moment un green effect et après un Peter Wellman effect? On est d'accord? Et d'ailleurs, Peter, on vient de parler de viticulture, on a parlé aussi de l'Amazonie. Toi, il y a une bataille que tu as qui est très forte, c'est ce sujet de la sylviculture raisonnée et aussi celui de la viande animale. Est-ce que tu peux nous en dire un peu plus?
Should also include the solution or first what's going wrong?
What's going wrong?
What's going wrong? A lot. I agree, Antonio. It's about madness, greed, whatsoever. And we see it in different colors. In my case, it's green. Perhaps I make a quote from the highest-ranking German forest scientist who advised the German government. He says, "Forest without forestry won't survive." Okay, so we know after 380 million years, trees are not longer able to do the job without chainsaw. That's exactly what he says. And that means in times of climate change, or let's say we go one step back. In France, in Germany, in Brazil, in Russia. In Russia, it's not that big plantation problem because you have more primeval forest, of course, left. And in Brazil too, but you have eucalyptus plantations. And in Europe, we are the ones who give good advices, for example, to Brazilian people. And when the question comes, how many primeval forests do we have left? In Germany, we have to say, not a single square meter. But it's because of culture, and we know how to make it. And so German foresters changed it and change it still to more non-native trees. That's exactly what we see. This system has never proved to be better than natural forest, but they always told us that these forests are better. So they are dying now. In Germany, that's around about 50%. I don't know the percentage in France, but it's, I think, more or less similar. 50% of the forests, of the plantations, non-native conifers, spruce, pine, Douglas fir, larch, they are dying. And then the foresters say, that's climate change. You say, but that are trees which used to live in colder regions, more rain and so on, so they have died since 300 years here, and now it's increasing because of climate change. What we see, 50% of the German forest landscape disappears. So far, they even don't know how much we have reached so far. It differs between 5,000 and 20,000 square kilometers. I think that's a lot, concerning that we have satellites, and you could bring it to a single square meter down, the exact number, but they don't know it, they make it by foot, like 100 years ago, to estimate how big the damage is. And what we see is, yeah, the greed, to come back to Antonio, but we need timber. What about toilet paper? And we see, but it's about water first. And then let's see what we use. We have new technology looking to Japan and toilets, just to say. Yeah, we are intelligent. We don't have to stay at the stage of 100 years ago. But the timber industry tries to push timber use, to burn timber in power plants. We see it all over Europe. France I think they are still already operating timber power plants with imported timber from North America, cutting down the peatland forest there and making them to pellets for Europe. The forest business, the forest lobby is a small section, but with very big impact. And they are telling again and again the story of carbon storage and changing from coal and oil to timber, and that's a lie. It's the dirtiest fuel that you can ever use, just concerning the carbon part, not concerning the water part and the cooling part. It's much, much bigger. As you said, how many times? 15 times more or whatsoever. We don't know exactly, but it's overlooked. No, it's not overlooked. It's disregarded by those, because the biggest timber sellers are in Europe, the state forest commissions, which should control the sustainability. And they say, we are good, it's all okay. And if something goes wrong, that's climate change. We have nothing to do with that. And then we plant what? Douglas fir, red oak from North America, or perhaps paulownia. Oh, they are so fast growing, wonderful. We make forest. We have, in Germany, we have one state, the state forest officers, they have on their jacket, we make forest. And I'm missing the line, we are gods. Because you can't make forests, you can make plantations, nothing else. Nothing against timber, I love timber, but we have to have an adaptive management. We have to look when we take out something and control ourselves, what is going on with temperature, with water. Oh, it's perhaps too much, so we have to stop it or reduce it. No, they are still on the line in Europe, especially European Commission. There was the fight, and it still subsidized the burning of timber. It's crazy. Yeah, we with subsidies, we make our new deserts, as you said. And the next thing is about meat. Yeah, you ask who wants to quit meat eating? Me. I've done that a lot of years ago because of that. Because it's the first climate killer. And the discussion is the same like guns in the USA. It's not possible to have a proper discussion about this. It's not about to forbid meat. It's about not to give governmental money to make meat cheaper, because more than 80% of the farmland is used for animal production. And if we reduce it, we have calculated this for Germany, if we would reduce it to 1 day a week, as the times when I was a child, because meat was expensive then, of course, we could, alone in Germany, have around about 90,000 square kilometers wilderness back. And that means cooler atmosphere, more rain, less floods, and people are, they have 100% their calories, it's healthier, and people who want to eat everyday meat, morning, midday, and in the evening, they are allowed to, but they doesn't get subsidies from the government for this, to make meat cheaper. That's one of the, we're not in the solution, but it's one of the big problems. Everywhere where you see grassland in Middle and Western Europe, that's former forest land or peatland. And people say, oh, it's so wonderful, the insects, the flowers. No, that are green deserts, because it's intensive agricultural land. And so we can turn this back very fast. That's a chance. So there's so many hope. But discussion starts at this point at the plate at home. And every one of you knows that's a very hard discussion.
Thank you, Peter. So let's keep the word hope now. Huh? We have spoken a lot about difficulties. So I didn't know we will talk about Japan toilet today, but that's done. Let's talk about hope. And perhaps we are 1,000 here. It's a lot. 1,000 people who can be change maker. So my question for you will be, what kind of change do we need to implement that will change the world regarding water and forests? Antonio, perhaps, if you want to start.
That's the part that gives me some respite. I don't need translation for myself. I was so impacted by a number in 2019. I saw this number. Ethiopia is, a country in Eastern Africa. They planted 353 million trees in 12 hours. Did you hear this story? And this is a competition going between India. India had planted like 60 million, and then Turkey planted 70 million. And then, of course, the Chinese, they're planting billions of trees.
India, too, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, most of those trees die out after a short time. And even when they don't die out, like in Senegal, they planted with UN money lots of trees. And when they were 6 years old, more or less, they were cut out for fuel wood. No, people had to cook, and they cut the trees. So because we have seeds, this incredible technology, we can rely, and as Anastasia pointed out, the system has evolved over billions of years. This is R&D, research and development, done for free by Gaia, by the natural system, to fix itself. When today you have an earthquake and a city is destroyed, you have to go there and rebuild it brick by brick. When there is a blowdown in the Amazon, a big windstorm and break the forest, like several hundred hectares are destroyed, you go back there 10 years later, it's all fixed automatically. Can you imagine a more advanced technology than that, right? And if you allow the system to do what it does best, it will let ecosystems in different parts be what they were designed to be originally. And it won't try to mess with it too much. I am an agronomist by training, so I understand what it means to manipulate things. Some of my colleagues won't like it, but it's really very, very arrogant attitudes towards nature. I understand that exotic plants can be helpful in some circumstances. Like, for example, we can recover deserts. We can accelerate the recovery of deserts, provided we understand the biotic pump and we bring it together. And the secret for all is union, is to put together. That's what nature does. And this has been a misread part of nature for a long time. We trusted more competition than collaboration. Competition exists in nature for some cases. But collaboration is fundamental, is universal in nature. You read the books by Peter, you understand why. So collaboration also between us, among us. And this is the single most powerful sign of hope. And there is another word for collaboration, it's called love, right? Love is a simple way to say, when you love thy neighbor, when you love your family, you collaborate, you don't compete. Competition has a role, but it's a smaller one. And this is, I think, is the secret for moving forward very fast. With the help of this technology developed over billions of years, we can trust it. So in the end, it's no-brainer. It means it's not a big challenge, it's not impossible. We're just trusting R&D that developed over billions of years. We cannot compete with that kind of competence, right? We don't go to the laboratory or to engineering to do artificial intelligence, or even if you get ESA, European Space Agency, you develop an incredible satellite, but nature has done much better much long time ago, 500 million years. We can trust it. It's the simplest way, I think.
It's amazing. Have you been to other conferences? Every time we speak about solution, we speak about hurt, we speak about confidence, we speak about trust, collaboration. Even scientists are saying that. It's not about data, it's not about proving, showing, it's about hurt. Thank you so much, Antonio. Anastasia, what about you? What would be your solution that you would like to scale up?
In our group, Antonio is responsible for the hearts. And I'm more about the mind, so more like neutral. I would like to say, as Peter mentioned, the difference between natural forests and what we are doing, what we call forests, is absolutely fundamental. So, in practical terms, when we are now talking about certifying wood, which is growing in importance, so I would suggest very practical that every company, it doesn't just need to prove that they don't deforest or something or whatever. Every company could be suggested to be responsible for an area of natural forest that is preserved for eternity. Where is the forest that you are preserving? Then you are cutting somewhere and you are proving that you are doing that sustainably. But what is it that we are preserving? This is one thing. Another thing, a little bit earlier we discussed, how it matters. You know, it is not just about flying rivers, which is continental in scale. What is happening now that we have this uptick in global temperature, which climate science is admitting they don't know, and we don't know how it came. It can't be explained by just rising CO2. And what is being done in the Amazon, now the research shows that it radically changes the cloud cover distribution, and this is responsible for the abrupt rise. So what's going on in the Amazon in terms of the water cycle disruption translates to the whole world in the disruption of water cycle regime everywhere due to teleconnections in atmospheric and oceanic circulation. And when we are talking about oceanic circulation, which affects climate in Europe, it is also affected by the water vapor exchange with the North American and Eurasian continents. So when we mess with the forests there, and in Siberian forest even, we disrupt this circular flow of air, of moist air, and we destabilize this system of oceanic and atmospheric currents. So disruption in one place translates to propagates through the entire system. That's why there is no forest that doesn't matter to us personally.
Il n'y a pas de forêt qui n'a pas de valeur. Comment est-ce qu'on garde les forêts? Merci beaucoup, Anastasia. Et c'est vrai, on le voit au quotidien, enfin je ne sais pas si ça vous choque, mais nous, ça nous choque beaucoup chez Planète Urgence. On le voit au quotidien où on a envie de planter des arbres, parce que peut-être qu'on a envie d'être en action, en mouvement, on a envie de démontrer qu'on a fait quelque chose, mais finalement, est-ce qu'il ne faut pas avant tout et surtout conserver ce qui est, ce qui existe? Et ça, c'est important que tu l'aies pu le rappeler. Merci beaucoup. Laurent, si tu avais tout pouvoir là, maintenant, qu'est-ce que tu fais?
J'en ai pas mal.
Chouette alors.
Non. En fait, la première chose, c'est que bon, moi, j'ai une éducation de chef d'entreprise et Depuis ces années où je participe aussi, et grâce à Jacques, grâce à toi, grâce à beaucoup de monde, à beaucoup de conférences, j'ai pu voir en fait la puissance des think tanks. D'accord, on pense, c'est formidable, on a des idées. Puis après le think tank vient l'espoir, hope. Il y a un autre personnage aussi qui m'a beaucoup influencé parce que je cherche les obstacles et après je vais aller à l'essentiel. C'est Monsieur Boller, le bug humain. Pour ceux qui ne l'auraient pas lu, je vous conseille de le lire. Bon, c'est pas très fun. Mais quand on lit ce livre, on voit qu'en fait, on est programmé, nous, pour se protéger contre les dangers à court terme. Juste à court terme. Je ne veux pas dans trop de détails. Et dès c'est un peu plus loin, dès que le danger arrive et s'en va, on arrête d'agir. Donc on peut être tous émus par les crues dévastatrices à Valence. D'accord ? Et puis, après, on repart vers sa vie normale. Donc, il y a en fait la difficulté, c'est qu'il y a le think tank, il y a l'espoir, et puis après, il y a des obstacles. Et donc, moi, mon propos que j'essaye de défendre, pas seulement de défendre, puisqu'en fait, c'est le sujet, c'est do think. Do think. Alors, je vais vous raconter une petite histoire, là. Je ne serai pas très long. Le pouvoir, il faut le prendre. Et on a beaucoup discuté avec justement Antonio, Anastasia, d'autres qui sont ici dans cette enceinte. Moi, depuis des années, je cherche en fait l'efficacité. Et l'efficacité, c'est d'aller chercher la cause racine, la chose la plus importante. Donc j'ai fait mon voyage, forêt, les arbres, le one tree, hein, les 1000 milliards d'arbres, etc. Et puis, en tombant sur les rivières volantes, il me semble, ou j'ai la conviction, qu'on est sur le sujet le plus important. C'est le sujet le plus important. Comme ça a été très bien décrit. Alors, je vais plus loin. Imaginez en fait que l'Amazone, c'est une pièce de monnaie. Il y a deux faces à la pièce. D'un côté, c'est la poursuite de la vie humaine sur Terre et la paix. De l'autre côté, c'est la guerre, c'est se battre en fait pour survivre, parce qu'on n'a pas accès tous à l'eau, pas accès donc tous à la nourriture, et c'est partiellement ou totalement la destruction de la vie humaine sur la planète. Avant la vie humaine, il y avait des déserts, il y avait une vie dans les océans. Non. Moi, il me semble qu'avec ce sujet-là, donc l'Amazone, cette pièce, c'est aussi grave et important qu'une astéroïde qui vient en fait tomber sur notre planète. C'est aussi grave qu'une pandémie qui en fait nous réduit à néant. C'est aussi grave aussi qu'une méga éruption volcanique. C'est aussi grave qu'une méga guerre nucléaire. Alors je le dis à dessein parce que ça peut changer la donne. Lula, en fait, il a une responsabilité de protéger sa forêt amazonienne pour lui, mais en fait, ce n'est pas que pour lui. Donc, il a besoin aussi de la défendre pour le reste de l'humanité. Et ça peut changer aussi l'équilibre géopolitique. Lula, il peut savoir qu'il a entre les mains un pouvoir géopolitique immense. Qu'est-ce qu'il fait, Lula, aujourd'hui? Il a déjà annoncé, en fait, qu'il voulait protéger la forêt amazonienne. Il a déjà dit qu'il voulait stopper la destruction de la forêt amazonienne. Mais ça ne suffit pas. Ça ne suffit pas parce qu'il y a des dessous de table, il y a de la corruption, et puis en fait aussi, il y a des gens qui ont besoin de vivre au quotidien et qui disent « mais moi, mon court terme est plus important que le long terme. Donc je vais prendre une partie dans la forêt et je vais faire de l'élevage ou de l'agriculture. » Donc face à ça, il y a action et puis amplification. Je pense que la première action, ce serait de se dire « vous, les Brésiliens et tous ceux qui dépendent de la forêt amazonienne, faites une coalition. Faites une coalition, créez peut-être aussi une armée verte pour protéger, comme ça se passe en Afrique, pour protéger contre les espèces rares qui sont décimées, pour vous protéger. Mais ça ne suffira pas. Il faut qu'on puisse donner effectivement des moyens à ceux qui en ont besoin pour survivre. Et c'est l'autre partie du monde qui en a besoin, parce que la menace amazonienne n'est pas pour le Brésil, elle est pour le monde entier. Donc c'est un sujet de compensation. Alors ça paraît utopique, mais je le dis avec fermeté, puis on va essayer jusqu'à ce que ça ne marche pas. Première chose qui est magnifique, c'est qu'on est dans l'instinct, on est à l'UNESCO ici. Hein. Donc la mission de l'UNESCO, c'est préserver la paix par la coopération. Donc c'est symbolique, mais premier engagement, j'espère qu'elle me recevra, je vais aller voir Audrey Azoulay. On va reparler avec Audrey Azoulay de tout ça. La deuxième chose, c'est qu'il y a bientôt, au Brésil, une COP 30 à Belém. Ce qui serait formidable, on a encore un peu de temps, même si on n'est pas forcément dans le programme in, dans le programme off. Et si on peut, avec les mêmes personnes qui sont ici, et sont avec Lula, poser ce sujet-là en disant « c'est le sujet le plus important, rassemblons l'énergie pour donner aux travaux qui sont ici les moyens d'être dans la réversibilité ». Et puis mon dernier engagement, puisqu'en fait c'est un sujet aussi pas que politique, de régulation, c'est un sujet économique. Donc moi j'ai la chance de travailler dans un groupe qui a un pouvoir économique. J'ai la chance de travailler aussi avec des gens que je connais maintenant assez bien dans un réseau. Et donc on va pousser aussi la société civile dans cette direction-là. Pas sûr d'y arriver, mais en tout cas, on va essayer.
On va y arriver. Merci beaucoup, Laurent. J'adore rassembler des scientifiques et des acteurs du monde économique. C'est quand même d'une puissance. Merci beaucoup à tous les quatre. Laurent en prend note. Hein. C'est agenda appris avec quelques rendez-vous. Avec plaisir pour avoir de tes nouvelles prochainement. Peut-être Peter, pour conclure, ça serait quoi, toi, ton levier principal? Qu'est-ce que tu ferais pour changer cette donne au-delà de tout ce qui a été dit aujourd'hui?
I think the main game changer I keep for the last sentence. First, there are solutions on the table, for example, that you can bring subsidies away from agriculture to climate benefits, for example, for cooling, for biomass. You can measure that very easy per satellite. There are good systems, which is not just about temperature, but also about humidity. You can bring the data together with the tax bill and pay it automatically to everyone who owns land. So I would bring subsidies away from animal production. We can have animal production, but without subsidies, because we have bigger topics and bigger tasks today. That's one point. The other point is a very small step that we initiated a new course of study, social ecology forestry. I don't know any other course at any other university in any country concerning this, with good governance, with indigenous knowledge, with adaptive management, much more careful with modern techniques. And the first students started last year. In Germany, Eberswalde, where a course of study like this was abolished 100 years ago, because Alexander von Humboldt knew a lot of things we discussed today, very good researched and forgotten for 100 years. That's it. But one of the two bad things, one is fight for democracy. You see, in North America, it's worth nothing when you have plans and laws and whatsoever, and an autocrat takes over, then it's all gone. For the moment, I think Trump opened 1.2 or 3 million square kilometers for logging. Okay, why not? So all the fight for decades for those national forests is worth in the moment nothing. So democracy is very important, and we can't underline it enough. Don't vote for right parties, then it's over. It's sorry for that, but we have to say it very clear. That's because when you have democracy, you have NGOs. You're allowed to speak like we speak. You're allowed to applaud like you want, without being arrested, and so on. Yeah. So that's important. And not the last sentence, but one of the last sentences is when I think what I want to achieve. This little planet will be I think in 1 billion years, the oxygen will be blown away from sun winds. In 4 billion or 5 or whatsoever billion years, this little marble will be burned in the bigger sun, so you can't protect anything forever. And the question is, for how long? I'm responsible for my life. And when let's say I'm going to be 90, when I'm lucky and look back at my life, then I want to be happy and say, yeah, it was a good life. And my life doesn't contain hate. And I don't want to harm people. And I don't want to harm other species. Okay, I have to eat something. But beside that, without reason, I don't want to harm anything. Because I don't feel comfortable then. And so it's, as you said, it's about love, it's about emotions, it's about a happy life. And for your own life, you're responsible yourself. You can't change anything, everything. Anything you can change, of course, but not everything. But you can come into your balance, and that's very important. And the last sentence, I want to say, if the forest life would be able to vote, they wouldn't vote for Trump.
So let's put forest as the next president of France first. Let's stop subsidies who destroy forests. And let's put happiness as a minister. Thank you so much. We have a plan. We have a plan, do we? Now let's do this plan, and let's do it with you. So we have 10 minutes for questions. I'm going to take some questions 3 by 3, if it's possible. Make it short, precise. Don't speak about your life in 10 minutes, please. And related to water and forest, if possible. Thank you. We do have 2 people who will have the mic. Well, we already have 2, 1 and 1. 2 ladies, thank you. And a third one here.
Hi, thank you very much for this very interesting talk. I have a question. I think Anastasia and Peter, Antonio, you talked a lot about the fact that planting trees was not the solution. And I believe NSC is a big customer of reforestation. I think also Anastasia mentioned that protecting forests and companies should buy forests, or I'm not sure what she meant exactly, but that companies should protect forests. So how do you see, how can companies protect forests, and what's the best way? What do you think about carbon credits? That's my question. Thank you.
So it's 2 questions, conservation versus restoration and carbon credit. Yeah, thank you. Please go.
Hello. I have a question for Anastasia. As I understood, you are working in very different areas, Siberian forest and tropical forest. And do you find the common problems in these areas? And most importantly, do you find common solutions for ecological problems in both areas?
Cool. Thank you. Let's have a third question. It was here. Yeah. The lady in white just after you. Yeah, thank you.
Bonjour. My question is, a water engine will help the environment? And why don't we try to remake another one? Because it's in history that we learned it was an engine that was working with water. So this should help the environment, no?
I didn't get your question quite right. Can you reframe it, please?
A water engine will work on helping the environment. This is my question. It would improve something?
Okay. Do you have it in French? Or someone can help.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay.
Les trains à vapeur. Bon, je suis désolée, je n'ai pas compris. Je propose qu'on prenne une troisième question, et puis si à un moment ça résonne, on rebondira. Et on peut en discuter juste après, si vous voulez, après la séance. Allez-y.
So I'm sorry, my question is not very scientific, but I heard a lot of proposed solutions. Do you think that giving nature rights and recognizing nature as a legal person could be a way to solve all this, like the Amazon giving it legal personality for better protection?
Thank you, and so nature rights. Who wants to take conservation versus restoration? As a one to you, okay.
Just make a brief. So the question was, how can companies facilitate conservation, and whether carbon credits can help? I'm not an expert on carbon credits, so I can only tell my opinion, and I'm ready to be wrong. Carbon credits won't help because it is very formal, and because carbon doesn't capture. Sorry, Peter, you mentioned biomass to be subsidized. Biomass doesn't mean complexity. You may have a lot of biomass which won't be functional. So I would imagine that it is like every company needs to have an area which it is responsible for natural forest to continue there. So just like, you know, not sponsorship, but mentorship or guarding or whatever. So just on a map, you are responsible for that it is not logged, it is protected from anthropogenic fires and all that. But maybe you can add. And regarding Siberian forests, yes, we travel also with Dr. Nefedov, who is in the, here also from our team. And what is the main problem there is that fires follow logging, because logging disrupts the local water cycle. The forest dries, what remains dries up, and there are roads, and this all leads to higher flammability, and fires follow, and there is this vicious cycle, because after big fires come other big fires. So this is this is the problem in the continental part. Disruption. Here in Europe, the peculiarity is that the continent is blessed with a highly rigged coastline, so it is almost everywhere close to the ocean. So it is not direct desertification that threatens it, but loss of stability of the water cycle. So natural forests would regulate it. No droughts, no floods. When we remove them or overexploit them, there will be these fluctuations. And plus, when we overexploit them, they lose stability. Like now, forests in Germany, especially spruces, are dying due to forest beetles, bug beetles. So loss of stability also. So when there is this climate change on top of that, we need to lessen our exploitation of forests. They can't give us pellets, toilet paper, timber, and everything. The more we take from them, the less they have to regulate the environment and climate for us.
I don't know if we have time to respond all, but one thing that I think is very important is the carbon credit story. When I returned from my PhD, I did in the US, I set up the first flux tower in the Amazon. We wanted to understand whether the Amazon was a sink or a source for carbon. And we did the first studies there. Until one day I realized that carbon was not the key. Water was the key. Why? Because if there is no water, carbon becomes flammable. You know, trees catch fire, and then you lose all the carbon. And the other thing is, imagine if someone would value your value as a human by your weight on the balance. That's what we do with this whole story of carbon credits. We are reducing the value of a tree by its weight. Or you go to a library, get a book, and put it in a scale to see how much it weighs without looking what is written inside. So life could not, you cannot compare 1 kilogram of tree with 1 kilogram of coal or oil. It's completely pointless. We have to treat life as what life is. Life is an incredible miracle of complexity, you know, and physiological capacity and competence. So we should value, maybe we should have life credits and not carbon credits. This is one thing. Second thing is, if you look into the atmosphere, CO2 responds by around 22% of the greenhouse warming. 60 to 80% of greenhouse warming is water vapor. No one talks about water vapor. It's another elephant in the room. And water vapor, no one talks. Meteorologists will tell you, because they say, oh, there is all this ocean. There's no way we can prevent water vapor from coming off from the ocean. But they are forgetting the forests. Because the forests that not only regulate the water vapor cycle, but it changes the water vapor from a greenhouse gas into a fantastic lever of cooling, air conditioning. In a sunny day, you go under a tree and you feel the fresh, because it's every gram of water that evaporates consumes 600 calories of heat. It's air conditioner. But different from an air conditioner, this cooling is bringing heat from the surface and shipping it to 5 kilometers height, when it condenses, produces clouds, release the heat to space. So it's you revert the role of water vapor from an evil into something incredibly important and good. And then you produce white clouds which reflect sunshine. You know, you see now people trying to put mirrors in the space to reflect sunshine. No need for those. Just put forests, because then you have clouds, as Anastasia was mentioning. We are losing clouds in the Amazon because we're destroying it. There was another question which I missed, I guess, and I don't think we have time. 25 seconds.
We have 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Conservation versus restoration.
I don't remember the question.
Conservation versus restoration. Do we need to do both?
Both, absolutely. And going back to this thing of reforestation, yes, if we reforest mindlessly, like sleepwalking, it doesn't work. China has planted 800,000 square kilometers of trees in the last 30 years. And a study done recently shown that only 15% of those trees form the canopy, because they are not using the biotic pump knowledge. So they plant trees too far from the ocean, and they eventually die off. So you have to do this intelligently, inspired by nature, inspired by all what nature can teach us. But we can help nature to, you know, when you have an old car and the battery goes dead, and you bring another car and put a jump start, and that's what we can do. We can jumpstart nature and through reforestation. Nothing against the story on carbon. I think there's been lots of good intentions in the field, but we have to really do it properly.
Thank you. You can applaud them. Thank you to each of you for coming on a Saturday afternoon too. You can applaud you. And you are at the right place, at the right moment. We are right now in France with a beautiful capacity to change the world, with people from everywhere coming here to talk about it. So you listen lots about solutions. You already have also solutions inside you, I guess. I really believe that's the moment to change the world. Nothing is lost. Everything needs to happen. So I wish you the best to be change maker in the coming days, weeks, months. And to finish, we have a gift from Antonio. It's a pulsation of the photosynthesis. Do you have the in régie? Can you show us the last gift we have? Alors, je ne suis pas la pulsation du monde, mais elle va arriver, c'est après normalement. Non, elle n'arrive pas? Bon, écoutez, on va essayer de l'envoyer au site de l'Université de la Terre. L'idée, c'était de voir la pulsation du monde à travers la photosynthèse, saison après saison. Voilà. Magnifique, non? Ça, c'est le monde. Et c'est ça qu'on va tous travailler à sauver. Thanks to water, so water and forests. Un grand merci à l'Université de la Terre, merci à tous les partenaires et merci aussi à l'UNESCO de nous avoir accueillis. Je vous souhaite une très, très bonne fin de journée.